Okay, guys, so it's 11:05, and I know that we're going to have more participants joining on in the next few minutes or so, but I did want to get started because we want to be respectful of everyone's time this morning. So good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Brittany Basant. I'm the Executive Director for ChamberSOUTH. We are so thrilled to have you all here for this informative program with our Superintendent of Miami-Dade County Schools. And to introduce him, I would like to introduce our Chair of our Board of Directors, Mr. Mariano Martinez with U.S. Central Bank.
Thank you, Brittany. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're very excited to have Alberto Carvalho join us. He's a great friend of ChamberSOUTH. He has been with us for many events in the past, so we're very appreciative of his time this morning. So thank you again for joining us. So I just want to tell you a little bit about him. He has served as Superintendent of Miami-Dade County Public Schools, the nation's fourth largest school system, since September 2008. He's a nationally recognized expert on education, transformation, finance, and leadership development. During his tenure, Miami-Dade County Public Schools has become one of the nation's highest performing urban school systems, receiving system-wide accreditation from Advanced Ed in 2014. The district has also been named the 2014 College Board Advanced Placement Equity and Excellence District of the Year, as well as the 2012 winner of the Broad Prize for Urban Education. As a staunch believer in school choice, he has expanded choice options in Miami-Dade to over 1,000 offerings that include bilingual programs, fine and performing arts, biotechnology, engineering, robotics, aviation, forensic sciences, and many others. As instructional leader at heart, Mr. Carvalho is also the proud founder and principal of the award-winning Preparatory Academy that has become a model of robust 21st century learning in the age of innovation and technology. He is recognized by his peers as a national voice for equity in education. His honors include Florida's 2014 Superintendent of the Year, the 2014 National Superintendent of the Year, the 2016 winner of the Harold W. McGraw Prize in Education, the 2018 National Urban Superintendent of the Year, the 2019 National Association for Bilingual Education Superintendent of the Year Award, and recognition by Scholastic Administrator as one of the fantastic 5 educators making a difference in America. He serves on the National Assessment Governing Board, to which he was appointed by the U.S. Secretary of Education. Mr. Carvalho is a member of the National Board of Directors for Common Threads, as well as the Posse Foundation. He also serves as a committee member for the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, and as an advisory committee member to the Harvard Program on Education Policy and Governance. So his credentials speak for themselves. Our community is very lucky to have him at the helm, doing all this great work for us in the community. And we're so happy to have him here today. So with that, I will introduce Mr. Alberto Carvalho. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariano, and thank you very much, Brittany, for your earlier words. Good morning, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure to be with this great organization once again, albeit from a distance. Seems like the new normal for all of us. And maybe I'd like to begin not with my words, but I think with a powerful message, with a little bit of music that's reflecting of where we've been recently, but also where we're headed as a school system during these truly unprecedented and, from some perspectives, tragic times. So please, I'm going to be sharing a screen, and stay tuned for just a second. Okay, the host disabled attendee screen sharing. So if I could be enabled, would be great. Everybody see it?
Okay. Miami, home to the 4th largest school district in the United States, a multicultural, socioeconomically, and linguistically diverse community representing over 160 countries and 50 different languages. How did we do in 2020? Let's start with 0 F schools 3 years in a row. A-rated district with 99% of schools rated at A, B, or C. Our graduation rate has hit an all-time high of over 89%. And the kids got over $465 million in scholarships. Speaking of big wins, we are home to 3 senior high state football champions. #1 in the state, home of the top national award for career academies. We lead the nation with 28 magnet schools awarded the standards of excellence in the U.S. and the most merit awards nationally 9 years in a row. So, how did we do? Miami led Florida once again with 133 schools on the U.S. News and World Report's best high school rankings. Including 4 high schools among the top 100 in the nation, we outperformed every large urban school district, with 4th grade students ranking #1 in both reading and mathematics. Impressed yet? Let's not overlook. Modernizing our schools has reached an amazing 856 completed projects, surpassing a staggering $850 million in school improvements. Our energy rebate program has returned hundreds of thousands in energy savings. And speaking of money, our budget department was awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 34th year in a row. Did I mention it also earned the award for Best Practices in School Budgeting, the highest form of recognition in governmental budgeting? All of this happening with one focus: student achievement. 2020 was moving at lightning speed, proving that with a skilled workforce, surging achievement was inevitable. 2020 was on a roll. Then,
don't you know that we are stronger together? Stronger, yes we are. So much more when we're united together. One mind, one soul.
So I thought that was a high-powered way of kicking off today's conversation. It certainly gives you a sense of what Miami-Dade County Public Schools, but quite frankly, our entire community, our nation, our world have gone through. And I start where the video ended. We must be stronger together. And I think as a community, we are demonstrating that. You certainly are as a chamber. But I'd like to take you back a little bit down memory lane, back to March of this year. March 13th was the date that we decided to close schools in advance of the state's mandated shutdown of schools. And we did it for a number of reasons. It became clear to us after, quite frankly, examining the data since January, knowing that at some point this pandemic would reach our shores, and conceptualizing what the worst case scenario for us would be. And the worst case scenario, in fact, materialized. And what that was a rate of spread in Miami-Dade that escalated very quickly. The need for us to shut down every single school and pivot very quickly, seamlessly, to a distance learning platform by training teachers, providing devices and connectivity to virtually every single student in our community, but then maintaining sort of a legal and moral obligation for schools are not just places where pedagogy and cognitive development happen. We also address the social and emotional mental well-being of children, as well as their food needs. My friends, 73.4% of the children in our community live at or below the poverty level, which means they depend on the meals we provide them. If they do not get fed at school, they may go without eating. As simple as that. So since that time, since we shut down the schools and all throughout the summer, right now, and into the foreseeable future, we kept distributing meals. We have surpassed 7 million meals distributed. We supplemented that with our foundation by actually receiving funds and putting local businesses, restaurants in our community from the deep north to the deep south, from east to west, buying food directly from those restaurants, using our resources for transportation and delivering them to some of the poorest quadrants in our community. We have distributed, on top of the 6 million school meals, about 110,000 private sector cooked, prepared meals to children and families in our community. So we have made about a $1.2 million investment in support of local restaurants. We achieved close to 100% connectivity because of the 119,000 devices that we empower students with. And we were prepared then, as we are prepared now, because quite frankly, of people like you. Back in 2012, we passed a massive bond referendum, Proposition 222, to improve technology, to improve the condition of our buildings. You saw that featured in the video. And I tell you, $850 million spent on time, on target, no fraud, no overspending, no fiascos, work coming in ahead of schedule and below budget. One of those big investments, $250 million over the first couple of years, was in technology. So we were ready to pivot far ahead of most districts in the nation. Was it perfect? No. But were most of our students connected? Absolutely. Where, quite frankly, there were disparities was on the level of engagement of some students. A particular concern for me are obviously those students who were in crisis before the crisis that COVID-19 brought upon us. Children in poverty, English language learners, students with disabilities, particularly the severely disabled, who from a distance, it's very difficult to address their therapeutic needs, their social, emotional needs, their mental needs. That's why over the summer, we decided to leave the devices, the laptop computers, the Surface Pads in the hands of the students at a risk, and the connectivity, because on top of the 119,000 devices, we distributed 11,000 hotspots. We have over the summer bought an additional 25,000 devices, and we're about to put another order in for 13,000 laptops and additional 5,000 hotspots for the refurbishment and replacement of devices that may have been damaged during the summer. In addition to obviously the food and the education, we were very concerned with the level of engagement, and we made a decision. As soon as the state approved our plan, we could not do it before. This was July 17th, to go into a single platform, a single application, one-stop shop for all learning, all classes, all courses, meaning as opposed to the experience that parents, teachers, and students had beginning March until the end of that quarter of last school year. And one of the biggest complaints was, you know, I have to navigate different platforms. It's confusing, it's hard. I have to go to Class Dojo. I have to go to Read 180 or iReady. And that requires me, my student, my child, as a teacher to simultaneously monitor, manipulate a number of platforms and applications. Can you make it easier for us? And we decided to do that. It was a massive investment, $15 million with federal funding support to support us during the crisis. So that was one of many investments like PPEs and masks and new electrostatic disinfecting equipment and the like. But we are an educational institution. For us, it was critical for us to simplify the experience and make it more user-friendly. We didn't have much time to do it. In fact, since the state approval, which was late, July 17th until now, we've basically been in the process of launching a massive single sign-on, single platform, best in class, but over a relatively short period of time. This would have been an implementation that in ordinary times would require 5 to 6 months of implementation, phasing in, training, testing, etc. We're doing it all in 1 month, a little bit over 1 month. We're very confident that Monday's experience, Monday being the first day of schooling, will be a positive one, but look, it will not be perfect. It has not been perfect anywhere, particularly for a district our size, where we are at the mercy of technology. And some of the glitches we've had this week, and I acknowledge them, all of them were not the district's responsibility. All of them were because of GoDaddy, the largest host for server product and software, going down nationally, or Zoom going down internationally. A lot of our interactions rely on that. And but I understand the frustration of parents in the community when that happens. If we are the ones who are delivering the service, they think it's our fault, and I understand that. So we're keeping our fingers crossed going into August 31st as we launch the first phase of this school year, a phase that will be 100% online based on the current environmental health conditions in our community. And those are dictated by a remarkable group of public health and medical advisors, including a former Surgeon General of the United States of America, the head of pediatric medicine for the University of Miami, head of epidemiologists from FIU and others. They developed 8 different criteria, which we call the gating criteria, that guides our possible transition from stage 1, under which we will open this school year, to stage 2. Let me speak just very, very quickly as to what some of that criteria is. While in stage 1, we're in that position, and quite frankly, the entire county is in that position still, with progressive opening of certain elements. For example, on the 31st, restaurants will be able to open indoors with up to 50% occupancy of their capacity. But schools are in a different place. So under stage 1, that means that the positivity rate for COVID-19 cases needs to be below 10% for 14 consecutive days. The level of mortality and morbidity also on a downward trend for 14 days. The access to rapid testing and rapid results are down to 48 hours. Otherwise, the possibility for contact tracing is rendered useless. Also, the total number, the viral strength in our community, meaning the total number of COVID positive cases, down. For the past week and a half, we have seen that trend really improve significantly. We are now in a positivity rate at around 7.8%. It needs to continue to trend below 10% towards 5% and eventually hit 3%, which is the level of positivity at which community spreading is not happening. We believe that on the basis of that emerging trend, that we may be able to actually push up our second point decision in terms of transition to stage 2, which I thought would be happening sometime September 30th. But as I said, on the basis of recent and emerging very positive trend data, we may be able to actually make an announcement regarding a transition to stage 2, maybe mid-September rather than late September. What does that mean really? Well, as we start school through My School Online, parents made a decision that when conditions improved, about 50% of them in this community want kids to return to school. And when we pivot to stage 2, 2 things will happen. Parents who feel that their children's needs are best served still at home have declared that we'll have the option to continue through online learning. However, those parents who believe that their children social, emotional, cognitive needs are best served at school will be able to return their kids to school. And we have negotiated and continue to have conversations with our workforce for obviously the appropriate assignment of individuals to manage both of these approaches simultaneously. The fact that we are starting online does not mean that every single kid will be online. We recognize that there are some very fragile children. I described some of them before, some students with really debilitating disabilities that require a one-to-one intervention that cannot be afforded from a distance. So we are exploring aggressively shortly after Monday, the first day of school, of having waves of students beginning to come in a very limited and controlled way to school. That will include some students with disabilities. That will include career and technical education students, and those are older students, in addition to some of the younger students in early Head Start and Head Start programs. And quite frankly, those have been the recommendations that the World Health Organization and countries that have progressively resumed schools have done. Address the needs of the most fragile first, the youngest first, and those who pose the least risk. Obviously, those who will be working with them in schools will be wearing the appropriate PPE. We have made significant investments in schools in terms of appropriate social distancing, even though, I'd like to be very honest, it is impossible, virtually impossible, to maintain and establish 6 feet of separation in schools. Schools were not designed as such. And by the way, the current international and national advice on separation does not require that, as long as you impose an inflexible mandatory mask policy, which is exactly what we're doing. We are providing free of charge infrared thermometers to every single family in our community. And we are strongly advising families to measure their children's temperature prior to letting them go to school. We are encouraging our employees, and we developed a wellness application that they go through every single day. And it's a matter of simply clicking a questionnaire that's health-based. And if they click on that questionnaire in a certain way, they're cleared to come to work, and we are notified. If there's something that they answer to honestly, they may be prevented from reporting to work. So on both ends, in terms of the workforce and students, we believe we are ready. We bought powerful new equipment that's been distributed to the schools. We've gone through the intensification of disinfection cycles, mandatory hand washing cycles for students. We reconfigured a lot of the non-traditional school space as teaching space to allow for greater social distancing. And we have also implemented advanced technology for contact tracing, even though that depends on collaboration with the local health department and Miami-Dade in terms of the fast turnaround of results. The last thing I'd like to say at this point, before I open it up for more guided discussion, is that much like other places in the country, in which we've detected some truly irresponsible behavior, some of the scenes we saw out of Gwinnett County and UNC, where as soon as school resumed, it was back to the old normal, no adjustment to the new normal. We saw what the results were. Super spreading conditions of COVID-19. We do not anticipate that in Miami, but we do anticipate at some point in the near future, another surge, a wave. What we do anticipate is sporadic cases happening in our schools, whether they are family-driven, parent-driven, employee-driven, or student-born. Some will receive information from the local health department saying that there is a case that's been detected. They will inform us. And obviously, we will take all the precautions, follow the protocols that are necessary. That will mean that we may have to isolate, quarantine a group of students, a class, a set of classes, and in a worst case scenario, an entire school. Obviously, children are related to other kids who attend other schools. So the contact tracing process leads you to an investigation that may have like impacts in a middle school, senior high school, even though the alpha originator of the infection may have been an elementary level student. This is complex work, but there are assistive technology that we are utilizing in this process. Communication is critically important, and we've amped up the processes by which parents can communicate with us. And I think we are ready. But in as much as I say we are ready, we need to understand that this pandemic is a complex one. And there isn't a single opinion or fact that everybody agrees with regarding COVID-19. So we continue to be guided by the expert medical and public health advice of local and national authorities. We'll continue to make decisions that are in the best interest of our children and those who teach them. And we continue to take all the steps that we believe are prudent to reopen smart and return safe without cutting any corners. And with that said, I am the eternal optimist. I believe that everything we've done has been guided by fact and science, by engineering and careful planning, but we don't know what we don't know. And that's always the element out there that we need to be prepared for. So I close at this moment by saying, community, be patient with us. We continue to travel through unprecedented times. We have used all of the learning over the past 6-7 months to try to create a better experience, safer experience for everyone. And I do believe that on the basis of the latest trend, we will be able to transition to stage 2 in a faster way than we initially anticipated. With that said, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Superintendent. What an amazing discussion and presentation so far, and so much great information that just came out of that. One thing that I do want to talk about and direct the conversation to, I know that on Monday, school starts and there's a lot of distance learning that's going to be happening. And what are some of the virtual tools and resources that the parents and the families are really going to have to help them through that few weeks to mid-September or late September, depending on the reopening?
A good question. So the tool that we decided to acquire is called K-12, and it's going to be powered through My School Online. We refer to as MSO. What that means is that every single student, when they click on their tiles, and by the way, the tiles are being populated as we speak, actually monitoring a 95% at this point completion rate. And again, working with very compressed timeline. All of this information is detailed in the Reopening of Schools website within dadeschools.net. The reopening guide is there. There are lots of webinars which parents had exposure to this week from the 24th through the 28th. Lots of webinars, about 60 different types of experiences for parents with students, and for students. Sort of an orientation about the technology, about expectations, about how to best supervise, support, monitor children. I'm one, and I want to be clear with parents that while we are forced into a distance learning MSO reality, that does not mean that it's homeschooling. Now, the responsibility for teaching is that of the teachers. So what this new tool will provide is a lot more engagement, organic, direct engagement between the teacher and the student that was not as visible during the last quarter of last year. There will be active teaching that we call synchronous continuous teaching. Everybody will be visible in their cameras, in addition to obviously some asynchronous teaching and learning opportunities, much like you would have in a classroom. Typical classroom, you may have a teacher who will lecture for 20 minutes and then assign certain work that's done by the student for 15 to 20 minutes, and then they're back together for a group discussion alike. Expect that to be the reality. One significant difference from last year is that K-12 takes attendance hourly. Last year, attendance was taken once a day and then reported back to the school the following day. That posed a significant challenge for us because students were counted absent or present, but we didn't really have a clear, transparent gauge as to their level of engagement. Were they really participating? Were they engaging? Were they actively engaged in their learning? K-12 erases that possibility because attendance is taken hourly and there is much more organic interaction as part of the requirement. And we have had the appropriate conversation with the teachers union to guarantee that. We will be in MSO, as I said, through stage 1, and then for the parents who want to continue, because they did declare as part of their choice back in July that that's their preferred option, they will do so. However, this is critically important, they will have the ability, based on capacity at schools, to change their option. Much like a parent who decided to return their child to school once we meet the criteria, the gating criteria, and we pivot to stage 2. If there's a parent who says, you know what, I really want to keep my kid in MSO, no problem. And to the extent that we can accommodate parents who had made an earlier decision to continue through stage 2 online, they will have the ability to return to the building based on their choice and capacity. What we are trying to do to ensure maximum social distancing and really avoid large crowds or crowded hallways is to maintain buildings at no higher than 75% threshold of utilization based on their individual capacity.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Superintendent. That distinction between distance learning versus homeschooling, I think, is very, very, very important for our parents and our families to know moving forward. So we do have some great questions in the chat from our audience members. I'm going to go ahead and get into them. One of the questions that was asked is, what will allow students to be able to go on field trips in the future? Now, that's like way in the future.
Yeah,
but
that's very, very good question. So they'll start going on field trips in stage 1, but those are virtual field trips. And we have many relationships with the Smithsonian, with the Science Museum, with the Everglades Conservatory. I mean, so many different organizations that have actually lined up good programming, live programming that will be very enticing for the students. But while in stage 1, the field trips will be restricted to virtual. While in stage 2, field trips will remain by and large virtual, with some exceptions. There will be some schools, for example, there are some schools that are co-located in areas like the zoo, where the students may benefit from that interaction because it's on site. Once we move on to stage 3, that's when field trips will be fully authorized. And stage 3, obviously, I described it earlier. You know, we moved to stage 2 with a positive rate of less than 10%, heading towards 5 and a 3. Once the community reaches 3 to 4% over a sustained period of time, ICU bed capacity is ample. Mortality, morbidity rates are down significantly. Then you've reached stage 3. With stage 3, it's a normal school experience. Obviously, still with some preventative measures in place, some protocols in place. That's when field trips will resume. The same is true basically for something that I'm asked a lot, which is athletic competition and extracurricular activities, clubs. During stage 1, you will see progressive announcements that training and conditioning for some sports will be allowed beginning Monday, August 31st. Obviously, under very, very careful condition and control conditions. For example, no exchange of equipment, all of it done outside with social distancing. Obviously, some sports will be easier than others. I don't know how to do wrestling, Olympic wrestling, with appropriate social distancing. But we can all envision tennis with appropriate social distancing. But for soccer, football, volleyball, again, we're going to start slow, carefully with conditioning and training in outdoor environments with social distancing, with no exchange of equipment. And then with improved conditions, we'll progress into new levels of athletic experience for the students. There will be club activities under stage 1, but obviously they'd be held via Zoom interaction between students and the coaches or club sponsors of these activities.
Perfect, wonderful. So you touched on the second one, which was sports. There was another question about sports. Third question here, volunteers who are not employed by the district, will they be allowed to volunteer in person when schools reopen? And if not, will they be allowed to remain volunteering virtually?
Sure, to the extent that, the important question, to the extent that they have been cleared by the school system as volunteers, and many have, that clearance extends and they can actually volunteer virtually, and there will be virtual mentoring, tutoring, volunteer opportunities. Once we pivot to stage 2, then the door also opens for a physical presence of volunteers in the schoolhouse. The messaging regarding those opportunities will be done not centrally, but will be done school by school, directed by principals.
Wonderful. So this is an interesting question. This person agrees that once kids are allowed to go back to school, it will simply be a matter of time before you hear about an outbreak making news. And do you expect this to force Miami-Dade to close the schools again, or will it still be left as the parent's choice?
So I think it's a balance, right? It's a balance. You know, we are a choice school system, but I think ultimately the individuals responsible for making decisions about whether you shut down one class and isolate one group of students, or two classes or a group of classes, or an entire school or a group of schools needs to be contemplated prior to just making a wholesale decision impacting the entire district. Yeah, it is clear, not only here in the state of Florida, but also across the country, that with evolving technology, better tracing, better testing, we may be able to exercise swifter containment of infection once early detected, right, and addressed via contact tracing. We hope that the combination of those strategies will put us in a position of avoiding a wholesale shutdown of the entire school system. We are in a far better place today than we were back in March. And I don't take political positions on these matters because I think science, common sense, and wellness, the well-being of children, teachers, and the community at large should be the driving forces of the decisions that I make. And that's my commitment to you and to the entire community. So I will make decisions on the basis of intensity, severity, impact, scope of impact, right? Rather than just a one-size-fits-all decision like we had to make back in March of 2020.
Wonderful, thank you. And I think this will be our last question, because I want to be very conscious of time. What extra tools will be available as tutors for kids at home? So additional learning tools.
Oh, very good. So we have developed, and actually as part of the webinars for parents, and I encourage parents to visit our virtual parent academy, because there are a lot of information. There's a lot of information regarding possible assistance to students. So after school academic support is available telephonically, is available virtually for all students. We think that's important for the students and for the parents themselves. That's why we established the hotlines, and the easiest one is the 305-995-3000, 305-995-HELP, that any parent or any student can call for questions regarding homework assistance. If they miss the class, you know, how can they catch up? If they're having a problem with their technology, how can it be addressed? We have devices and connectivity for all students, and as I said earlier, more is coming. So we are the one-stop shop. Parents can visit reopeningschools.dadeschools.net for a lot of information. They can simply call the hotline for student assistance or parent assistance. The last thing I'd like to say is that I want to overstress this critical point that, holistically speaking, as a result of this isolation that parents, students have gone through, we are concerned not only about the learning loss, but we are concerned also about the short or long-term psychological effects that some children may have experienced or experience. So we have online resources as well as telephonic resources staffed by psychologists, mental health professionals, counselors, trust counselors, to address the social and emotional needs as well as the mental needs of both the children and the parents. And we are ready then to refer beyond the schoolhouse resources that we have, individuals to community partner organizations to maintain that level of support. Last thing I'll say, patience. Patience, please. This is a massive endeavor, the likes of which no school system has done. You know, a lot of people say, you know, Broward didn't have any issues with the week of welcome because Broward did not have a week of welcome. They did not have a massive orientation for parents and students. They may say, you know, this is a little bit late for Miami. Well, Broward does not have a single application for everything like we did. We invested $15 million in a concise amount of time to get this done. So there will be hurdles, there will be challenges, there will be glitches. We know that our patience is tested these days every single day with a spinning wheel on a computer, or we can't hear you because the mute button is on. That's the new reality. But I think that the community coming together, supporting our students and teachers, we will be able to demonstrate once again why we are, for 3 years in a row, an A-rated system, for 4 years in a row, a school system with 0 F schools. So thank you so much for the opportunity to have this important discussion with you, and thank you for your support as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Superintendent, for your leadership, especially as we navigate these unprecedented times. And I'm going to kick it over to Mariano Martinez. He's going to close out today's program.
Yes, so once again, Mr. Carvalho, thank you so much for your time. We here at Chamber South appreciate your leadership and everything you're doing for the community. We know it's a very tough job to be at the helm of. I just want to remind everyone that's on the call, we have a mask giveaway tomorrow. So if you want some reusable masks for you and your family, you can drive by. We have it set up over at Miami-Dade College tomorrow. I believe it's between 10 and 2. Is that correct, Brittany?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's between 10 and 2. So ask us for any other details related to that. We thank you all for joining us today. It's some great information that he shared with us. And please come see us again in the future. We'll try and advise everyone of future events with Chamber South. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.